G'day everyone, Prep Aussie here, and hope you're all well in whatever part of the world you're watching this video. Today is Monday, the 27th of August 2018, and the time here is 10 AM Australian Eastern Standard Time. Well folks, I said that last week I'd leave the politics where it was. Gone, who cares? Not wasting any more oxygen. I think it's relevant for everyone though to understand that a government is essentially, they're people who run the books, whether good or bad, and they're running out of options as to how to make the books balance, if you haven't guessed. And then to top that off, we've got this drought which couldn't have come at a worse time. So they're running out of ideas to make all this work. That's the nuts of all this. And besides the fact that not one of us should lose any sleep about Malcolm Turnbull losing the Prime Ministership, because a lot of you people, if you're watching from overseas, what you don't know about that bloke is that he was the biggest knifer, backstabbing bastard in the Australian Parliament. He's knifed everybody. And now they're all, oh my God, Malcolm Turnbull's been knifed. Oh, well, tough shit. He's knifed everyone on his... To get up the slippery slope, there's lots of bodies underneath his feet. Let's put it that way. Anyway, I said that I would mention some things about the Banking Royal Commission. And it's kind of funny, because the things that I was going to talk to you about have all been taken off ABC. I'm going to show you something now that's relevant to... If you're a homeowner, you need to understand this. This is what I've been trying to say all this time. You know, about the interest rates, money, bond market, etc. So I'll go to that now. First off, folks, sponsor, Totally Rawsome, and the activated golden turmeric paste. Look, as I've said, this stuff does bloody work. I don't care what anybody says. And I wouldn't be sitting here telling you it did if it didn't. That's for sure. I've been using their stuff now for a couple of months, about 3 or 4 months. And it has significantly changed my life as regards to my knee pain and my general joint pain. I'll put the link at the end in the description box. Please give them a call. Tell them Prep sent you. And just so everyone knows, full disclosure here, I'm not getting paid any money to do this, by the way. I like the product, and I'd like to see some people get along in the world. So they're quite happy for me to promote it, and I'm quite happy to. So there you go. Okay, let's get that out of here. Now, if you haven't followed this, if you're not sure what the money problem is with all the banks, etc., and I did say to you, the banks get their money from overseas, bring it to Australia, chuck a shitload of interest on it, and chuck it out the door to us. And we, as the gullible fools we are, pay shitloads of money extra to keep that big machine turning. Well, look, what's come out of the Banking Royal Commission, and you really need to pay attention to this, because the banks are getting hammered about it at the moment. The government knows that this is going to come down after the Banking Royal Commission. One of the recommendations is the banks need to be brought back into line with standard business practices. Now what that means is, at the moment, they're turnover driven and shareholder driven. So Billy Blobs walks into the bank and goes, I need a home loan for $450,000. Okay, Billy, what's your assets? What do you do for a job? Etc, etc. Well, I've got a Commodore, and I've got 4 kids, and I make $30,000 a year. No problem, Billy Bob, we'll give you a loan. Sounds staggering, but this is what's going on. And the only reason they're getting the loan is because the middle managers get paid more for the turnover they do. The banks don't care, because at the end of the day, they're just going to turn around and, repossess the houses as well. Now, the problem here is that the bubble is so big that it's just unsustainable. And this has come out in the Royal Commission. Two things lately have come out of the Banking Royal Commission. One, the banks are absolutely ripping us off with false fees, etc. And they've been found out about that. And all of them have had to pay back billions already. The Banking Royal Commission hasn't even finished and they're paying back billions. Two, your and my superannuation that's run through the banks is just a giant rip-off scam. It was so bad last week during the question times, etc., that one of the banks, AMP was one, Westpac was another. AMP's Commonwealth anyway. But there was another one. I can't remember. It was a article in the ABC newspaper the other day, and I can't even remember who it was. But it was a massive bloody fund, and they were just blatantly ripping off people. They even admitted to it at the Banking Royal Commission. But go on the ABC today and try and find anything about the Banking Royal Commission. You've got to type it into the search engine. And I would seriously hope that you do. Please, go and find out exactly what they're doing with your superannuation. Because what you think they're doing with your superannuation and what they are doing with your superannuation are poles apart. Poles and poles apart. They're making absolutely very minimal returns on money that's in these accounts. Now, don't forget, you are an unsecured creditor with your superannuation funds. So if they go belly up, and don't forget, the banks have diversified all their portfolios, so the bank doesn't own the superannuation fund. It's an entirely different company, but its shares are owned by the bank. So if that goes kaput, the bank just goes, oh, well, But this is all coming out in the Banking Royal Commission. And it's blatantly illegal. At the end of this, there should be at least 10 major executives going to jail. That's already been said. I think it's 3 from NAB, 3 from Commonwealth Bank, and 3 from Westpac, and another one from Suncorp, I think. They have been pegged as being just criminals. So while you're sitting there going on about, what am I going to do with my superannuation? Well, you need to really start looking into what is happening with your superannuation, folks, because they're ripping it off you. And you'd be better off self-managing it because you'd probably make more money out of it. So please, just take the time. You're talking about a couple of hours here. And some of you have hundreds of thousands of dollars tied up with these clowns. And none of it's secured. You're going to lose it if these banks go under. So you need to start diversifying your accounts. All right, let me show you this Westpac. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is so that you guys actually understand what's actually happening out there in the big bad world. I'll read the first couple of paragraphs. Westpac interest rate margins have slumped over the past few months. And that's understandable because they've been so shit scared to do anything because of the Banking Royal Commission, because of the ripping off they're doing. Sending its shares price sliding and putting pressure on the bank to lift home loan interest rates. Why? A bank's net interest margin is the gap between what it pays to borrow money and the interest rate it is lending at, and is the main source of profits. So you can't say that you weren't told. I just told you before exactly what they're doing. Now remember, those profits don't flow to the bank. They flow to the middle managers, the shareholders, and the upper management. That's it. Because you and I aren't getting shit all out of it. How do you think they're making $5 billion profit in a quarter? This is serious. This is how much money these clowns are making out of your money. And it's all coming out in the Banking Royal Commission. Now, let's go back to that article just for a second. Around half of this came from higher wholesale funding costs, 4 basis points from its internal financial operations, the Treasury, and 2 basis points due to the people switching from higher rate interest only mortgages to lower rate principal and interest loans. The major banks have traditionally used their 80+% mortgage market dominance to increase interest rates on their home loans to recover any decline in the NIM, which is the net interest margin. However, now this is important. This is the guy that told everybody this is not feasible over the long term, the guy from UBS. However, UBS bank analyst Jonathan Mott wrote that the scale of the margin decline and the current anti-bank climate would make that difficult to do. This would mean the falling NIM will hurt profits, leading Mr. Mott to lower his earnings forecast for the next 2 years by about 5%. Now, it's an interesting article. If you want to go and read it, I'll leave the link. But the main thing you need to understand out of this Banking Royal Commission is that we're paying extortionate rates, extortionate amounts of money for interest rates. And we're also paying extortionate amounts of money just for anything in the Australian banking system. And we're also massively being ripped off. Now, but here's the big problem. We've accepted this problem for so long now, because we've all had our little muzzles in the trough, so to speak. None of us can physically turn around and go, oh, well, it's all the bank's fault. Well, the banks lend it to people, and that's us. So we all had our little nozzles in at the thing there, and the banks had their big nozzles in at the big trough. You know what I mean? So we're all guilty as anything about this. Now, the big problem here, folks, is that if you turn around tomorrow and you say, well, I can't afford that. I'm just going to get a flat interest rate at 2%, 3%. That cripples the bank's profit margin. It drops by a mile. I don't know anybody at the moment that hasn't fixed their interest rates. That's how many people have started to fix their interest rates. So there is some clever people out there. Now, what they said was the banks need to put their interest rates up to make bigger profits. But the base rate from the Australian Royal Reserve, what is it, RBA, Royal Banking, or whatever the bloody hell it's called, is 1.5, and it hasn't shifted for nearly 2 years. Now, what's going to happen is the bank's interest rates, which are actually higher, are going to have to start going up. Now, remember, I said to you, this is why the bond market is so crucial, because the bonds are going to explode. And the reason they're going to explode is because the banks have to put their margins up to make money. To keep their shareholders happy, they have to put the interest rates up. Right? It's actually illegal when you think about it, because you and I and our interest rates pay for the shareholders' dough. That's how dumb this is. Hope you all understand that. It's just basic mathematics. The maths behind it isn't great, but it's just a rip-off. But because we've all had a little, nuzzles in the trough, so to speak, we've all put up with it over the years. But it's gotten to the point now where it's becoming so, ridiculous. So what's going to happen is the banks are going to start putting their interest rates up. inflation's going to start taking off. So the Royal Bank of Australia has no other choice but to try and match the interest rate hikes. Now, I told you, Royal Bank of Australia is 1.5. That's the official Australian lending rate for bonds. But it's not because, well, it's not for you and I, because the bank's interest rates at the moment are like 5-6%. So they only have to raise the official bank's interest rates to 0.5%, and the RBA, Reserve Bank of Australia, has a huge, and I mean a huge problem on its hand. And if you read through the Royal Banking Commissions, everything that's been going on lately, the Reserve Bank's been saying, please don't put the interest rates up. Whatever you do, don't put the interest rates up anymore, because they're shitting themselves. Now, the Banking Royal Commission, as I said, has brought out all these bad lending practices. The UBS bloke that I was just talking about brought out an article a little while ago, and he said the Australian government needs to understand that when this Banking Royal Commission finishes and they get told that they have to fix this up, you have an occasion where the house prices are sometimes 50% higher than they should be. Did you understand what I just said? So the bank that you, me and everybody else is sitting in is 50% higher, priced 50% higher than it should be, because of us borrowing money, the shit lending practices from the banks, and the interest rate margins. So what happens when the government, at the end of this Banking Royal Commission, gets told they have to do a couple of things, arrest some, Commonwealth Bank employer, businessmen, executives, and they have to change the lending practices of these banks? Well, the first thing the banks are going to do is go, we're not lending any more money to people that can't afford it. The interest rates, will go up because we have to make more profit because we're not lending so much. And the whole thing just goes down a big black hole. So, this has already been acknowledged and accepted by the Australian government, by this Banking Royal Commission, the Australian government, and the lenders. They all know that this is coming. So they're all trying to get prepared for this the best way they can, which is to start interest rates going up. You see, because no one wants to be held accountable for ruining the economy. So they're going to blame it on you, and they're going to blame it on me, because they're going to say, okay, well, your interest rate today is 9%. Well, I went to bed yesterday, it was 4%. Tough shit. So you see where this is going. Now, as regards to your superannuation, the same shit is going on, folks. They've got your money and they are just, yahoo, let's go to Vegas. It is a rort, and it's been exposed for what it is, an absolute rort. 2 days ago, on the last Tuesday, I think it was, before all this leadership crap, the week before the leadership crap, it was interesting to note that the banks got pegged for false practices from Westpac, Commonwealth and the NAB, and they have to pay back billions of dollars to you and I for false margins. False margins, and they actually been charging people money for accounts, things on their accounts that didn't exist. And this has all come out. Like, they've actually sat there. If you're paying any attention to it, I really wish you would, if you're not. Because these guys are absolutely ripping everybody off. I won't go into the farmers today, but I will tomorrow, because what's happening to the farmers right now is it's actually very interesting. We have the opportunity here in Australia right now, where you've got farmers that are going, had enough, nothing else to lose, I'm off. And could you blame them? The banks are screwing them, the government's screwing them, everybody's screwing them. But it's getting so bad with people just going, I'm off, that the banks are shitting themselves, the government's shitting themselves. That's why there's this big impetus at the moment to get help to the farmers, because they're all leaving. And we are the food bowl, we could be the food bowl of the world, and we're going to have to actually import grains and stuff, because the farmers are just getting up and going, saying, oh, look, this bullshit, I'm not putting up with this anymore. And now the Chinese can't buy any of the farms, so the banks are left holding the baby. So if you're not paying attention to all this, you really, really need to. And you need to go down to your bank sometime soon and fix your mortgage rate. That's what I did. But like I said, that's not financial advice. That's just what I did, or we did, sorry. Because, you know, there's only so many pieces of wallpaper that can put over the cracks, folks. So I hope you all understand that. I'm going to try and find the stuff on the superannuation tomorrow on the Banking Royal Commission, so I can present it to you guys again. And also a little bit more about Deutsche Bank. So let's go to the prayers. Okay, verse of the day. For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. I'll read that again. For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. Very good. And as always, folks, finish with the Lord's Prayer. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, for ever and ever. Amen. Well, folks, a little bit longer than normal today. Sorry about that, but I just thought, as I said, this week I want to focus on finances, because that's what got me into all this, and I'm not a dummy on it. I kind of know something about it, and maybe something I say will help you guys out, we hope. Just one other thing. To everyone who got in touch with me as regards to my illness and said, you know, have you ever tried hemp oil, blah, 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 blah. I've made the first mission first trip down to Nimbin the other day, and I can happily say that it was a success. So to all those people who helped change my attitude on that, thank you. I'm quietly astounded, let's put it that way. And I'm going to try getting off these farmers now. So have a prayer for me, because I'm going to go through withdrawals no matter what I do, so it's going to be bad. All right, folks, God bless, prep out.